Some prisons in America never feel empty. At night, you can hear footsteps where no one walks. Doors slam when no one is near. Lights flicker for no reason. People see shadows moving in empty halls. These are not stories made up for movies. They really happened. And what you are about to hear is true. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next investigation. Eastern State Penitentiary sits on a hill in Philadelphia. It was built in 1829. The prison's founders believed in something radical, that punishment should not just hurt, but make a person think deeply. They wanted inmates to reflect on their crimes in total solitude. The architecture reflects that idea. Architect John Haviland designed the prison in a radial shape, 7 long cell blocks spreading out from a central hub. From that center, guards could see down every corridor. The walls were 30 feet high, made of thick stone. The outer buildings have Gothic features, battlements, arches, tower-like structures, to feel more like a fortress than a prison. Each individual cell was small, but built to be self-contained. A typical cell was about 12 feet long and less than 8 feet high. It had a skylight called the Eye of God that let in light, but also served as a constant reminder that someone was watching. Inside, prisoners had running water and a flush toilet, luxuries not common in all buildings at that time. They even had central heating. Prisoners got food through a small hatch, so they rarely saw the person who fed them. When they were moved outside their cell, guards placed hoods on their heads, preventing any sight of other inmates. Solitary confinement was the heart of the system. Each prisoner spent nearly all their hours alone. They could only leave for a small private yard for exercise, but even that was strictly controlled. Communication between prisoners was forbidden. Even talking was punished, because the system's creators thought that silence and isolation would bring about moral reform. But this experiment came at a terrible psychological cost. Very early on, people realized that long-term isolation was breaking minds. Mental illness, hallucinations, and despair were common. Historical studies of the prison system show that by the 1830s, reports already linked the isolation to insanity, high mortality, and severe mental distress. Inmates often showed signs of extreme anxiety, depression, paranoia, and in some cases, suicide. The prison's own records documented these deep psychological wounds. Over time, Eastern State changed. As the years passed, the prison became overcrowded. Cells meant for one prisoner held more. The original isolation system grew too expensive and too damaging to maintain. A new punishment cell block was built underground. This block had no windows, no light, and no plumbing. Inmates called it Klondike. By 1956, the prison added cell block 15, known as Death Row. In that block, inmates were almost totally separated from guards, with an electronic system that minimized direct contact. The architecture and policy had shifted from reform to control. Some of the most famous criminals in American history passed through these walls. Al Capone served time here. Willie Sutton, the bank robber, was here too, and he attempted a daring tunnel escape in 1945. Over time, the prison aged badly. Repairs grew too costly. By 1971, officials shut the prison down. After it closed, Eastern State fell into decay. But people saw it as more than a ruin. They saw history. In 1988, preservationists stepped in. Today it is a museum. Visitors walk through its cell blocks, its long, empty halls, and its dark corridors. The place stands as a monument to suffering, redemption, and failure. But many believe that the suffering never truly left. Paranormal investigators and visitors tell of strange, chilling experiences. In deep cell blocks, especially in death row, people report hearing distant, ghostly voices and the soft echo of laughter. Some describe sudden cold spots, as if invisible walls of chill drift through empty cells. Others feel a steady pressure on their shoulders, like a presence breathing just behind them. Shadow figures appear, too. People say they have seen dark, human-shaped shapes moving at the edge of vision. In the infirmary and older cell blocks, the air feels thick, as if time itself is trapped there. Some investigators claim to record disembodied footsteps or doors moving when no one is around. Even on regular daytime tours, visitors sometimes pause, unable to shake the feeling that something watches from the corners. According to witnesses, that watchful energy is strongest in the oldest cell blocks and in the spot once reserved for men condemned to die. Eastern State Penitentiary is more than old stone and cold iron. It is a testament to a grand idea and to how dangerous ideas can haunt us. The building does not simply remember, many say it lives. And when you walk its corridors, you do not just hear echoes of the past, you feel them. Alcatraz Island hovers in the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. For decades, it was one of America's most feared prisons. Built on rock so rugged that the waves crash hard against its shores, the island seemed made for confinement. When Alcatraz became a federal prison in 1934, its reputation was already tight and strict. The place felt remote, dangerous, and final. The design of the prison matched its purpose. Cellhouse walls rose high and thick. Steel bars lined the windows. Guards patrolled the rooftops and walkways. At night, the wind blew water spray against the walls. The smell of salt and iron hung in the air. The buildings creaked under the weight of decades. Behind each locked door lay tiny cells made to hold one man. In some cells, men lived in near silence, separated from others by thick walls. Life inside Alcatraz was harsh. Guards were strict. Schedules were fixed, and rules were many. Prisoners spent long hours in small cells. They ate in a common mess hall, but after that, they returned to their cells. They spent much of their time reading, writing letters, or doing jobs. Some worked in the prison's laundry. Others cleaned or repaired buildings. Books were limited. Letters home were carefully inspected. Freedom for them felt very distant. Many of Alcatraz's inmates were famous or dangerous. Al Capone, the gangster known across America, spent time behind its walls. Machine Gun Kelly and George Birdman were also held there. To the outside world, Alcatraz was the final place, the prison for criminals no one else could contain. Escape was difficult, but not impossible. Over the years, 36 men tried to flee. Guards watched for tunnels. They watched for stolen tools. But one of the most stunning attempts came in 1946, when 6 prisoners staged what became known as the Battle of Alcatraz. They took over part of the prison, armed themselves, and refused to give up. The fight went on for days. There were gunshots. Marines were called in. By the time it was over, 2 guards had been killed and 3 inmates died. The rest were captured or surrendered. The most famous escape plan happened in 1962. 3 men, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, spent months planning. They created fake heads from soap, concrete, and hair to fool the guards. They used spoons, saw blades, and other tools to widen the air vents in their cell. Slowly and carefully, they crawled through narrow utility corridors, climbed up to the roof, and then made their way to the edge of the island. In the darkness, they launched a flimsy raft made from raincoats they stitched together. They tied it with rubber life vests that they had made. Then they pushed off into the angry bay. What happened after their escape is still unclear. Some pieces of their makeshift raft washed up on nearby shores. But no bodies were ever confirmed found. The FBI and other agencies searched for years. Officially, the government declared they probably drowned. But people never stopped asking, did they survive? Did they vanish into a new life on the mainland? For decades, letters, photographs, and rumors have surfaced. Some say the Anglin brothers lived on. Others believe the mystery will never be solved. Alcatraz finally closed as a prison in March 1963. The cost of running it was just too much. Supplying fresh water, electricity, and food to an island prison was expensive. The damp ocean air caused the buildings to wear down. Rock and concrete cracked. Rust devoured metal. It was no longer practical to maintain. After it closed, Alcatraz changed. The island became part of the national park system. Visitors began arriving by ferry. They walk the same corridors once filled with hardened criminals. They stand in tiny cells, look out at the bay, and imagine what life was like there. Tour guides tell stories, and tourists snap photos. But many visitors say the place feels different, not just like a prison, but like a memory. Over the years, people have reported strange, unexplainable things on the island. Some say that late at night, when the tours stop and the place grows silent, they hear their name called. The voice sounds firm but distant, as though someone stands in a cell nearby. Others speak of sudden chills in parts of the cell house, places where the evening wind does not reach. Shadows are said to slip just out of view, sliding along walls where no one stands. Tour guides sometimes pause in silence, describing how previous visitors felt like they were being watched from the corners of the room. Several former guards have spoken of a heavy stillness, even when no prisoners remained. One old guard said the most quiet nights were the worst. The kind of quiet that makes you think the walls are listening, he said. Lights have flickered in empty cells, according to eyewitnesses. People say they have seen the shape of a man standing inside a barred window, even when no one is there. On windy nights, some feel a pressure on their backs, as though someone unseen leaned close. Others have reported hearing footsteps on metal walkways, mixed with distant moans, though no one else is walking. Paranormal investigators have visited the island many times. They bring cameras, voice recorders, and temperature sensors. On some visits, they record drops in temperature in specific cells. On others, their cameras pick up orbs, strange light reflections, or barely visible shapes. Some claim to hear disembodied voices on their recordings, voices that whisper softly, ask questions, or call out. For believers, Alcatraz is not just a closed prison. It is a place where history and memory mingle. The echoes of cell doors, the salt wind, and the footsteps of ghostly figures seem to remain. The island feels more than still. It feels alive in its own way, full of stories that refuse to die. And at night, when the fog rolls in, many wonder, is someone watching? The Ohio State Reformatory stands in Mansfield, Ohio. It was built between 1886 and 1910. The architect, Levi T. Schofield, designed it to look like a castle. He mixed Gothic and Romanesque styles so the prison would feel grand, serious, and even a little holy. Originally, this prison was not for hardened criminals. It was meant to be a reformatory, a place where first-time offenders could learn, work, and become better people. Prisoners came here to do meaningful work, building, cleaning, making goods, or doing chores. When the first prisoners arrived, the prison was not even fully finished. The earliest inmates helped build part of it. They helped lay the sewer system and built the tall stone wall around the prison grounds. This wall would become one of the many symbols of the prison's immense presence. Inside, the building is huge. It held a very tall, 6-tier steel cell block, one of the largest freestanding cell blocks ever made. The corridors are long and echoing. The staircases twist and turn. When the prison was running, every corner felt heavy with watchfulness. Life inside was often cruel, despite the earliest vision for reform. Over the years, the prison became overcrowded. Cells meant for one man sometimes held 2 or more. Prisoners complained of disease, bad food, rats, and violence. Solitary punishment was harsh. The prison had a hole where men were locked away in very dark, tiny cells. In one reported case, more than 100 men were confined there, but the prison had only a few dozen isolation cells. Inmates sometimes went weeks in those cells. That level of isolation drove many men to despair. The prison saw major violence. In 1948, prisoners kidnapped and murdered the family of a prison farm boss. The warden's own wife died in a strange accident. A gun fell from a shelf in her closet and went off when it hit the floor. Years later, the warden himself died of a heart attack inside his office. In the 1970s, inmates filed a lawsuit claiming that the prison conditions were cruel and unsafe. By December 1990, the prison was ordered to close by a federal court. After it closed, a group of preservationists saved the building. In 1995, the Mansfield Reformatory Preservation Society took charge of restoring it. Today, people visit by day to take historical tours, and by night for ghost hunts and special paranormal events. The reformatory's dark history and its castle-like structure make it a powerful place for ghost stories. Many visitors say they feel heavy energy as soon as they step inside. People report hearing footsteps, sometimes chains dragging, sometimes doors slamming. Others describe muffled laughter, whispers, or echoes of prison life long gone. One of the most haunted parts is called the West Attic. In the 1930s, when another prison burned down, hundreds of the worst prisoners were moved into this attic. It had no windows and barely any doors. Today, people who walk into that attic sometimes smell smoke, even though no fire is burning. On its walls, they see old signatures, names carved by the men who lived there. Another spooky place is the chair room. It is just a small room with an old wooden chair at its center. Guides say the chair moves sometimes. If you sit in it with the lights out, you might hear voices, feel vibration, or see lights flicker. Guests and ghost hunters tell of specific spirits. One is Helen Glatka, the wife of the prison's longtime superintendent, Arthur Glatka. She died after a gun accident. People say her scent of roses sometimes wafts through her former bedroom, as she used to wear rose perfume. Her husband, Arthur, died later of a heart attack, and some say he appears too. His spirit sometimes brings the smell of cherry pipe tobacco. Another presence is called the malevolent guard. He is described by visitors as a dark, oppressive figure. Some say they sense he is watching, following, or even touching them. Some people feel cold spots or sudden unease when they enter certain parts of the prison, especially the cell blocks. In the East Cell Block, visitors sometimes hear doors slam for no reason. They feel like someone is pacing above them. On some tours, people say they saw a figure hanging, a man swinging, like in a final, tragic moment. That story has haunted minds for years. Many paranormal investigators come with cameras, recorders, and sensors. They report sudden drops in temperature, strange orbs of light in photos, and faint voices caught on audio, whispers of "help me" or "leave me be." One ghost hunter described meeting a spirit in a corner of the showers. They felt deep sadness, as if the person was hurting in life and did not know they had died. Another visitor on a ghost walk said they heard two loud bangs, like fists hitting steel, though no one else was there. Even regular night tours feel different. The air feels thick. The floorboards creak softly. At times, the voices of the past feel very close. Many say this place does not just echo prison life, it holds it. The suffering, the fear, the hopes, something stays inside these walls. Ohio State Reformatory is not just a building. It is a memory in stone and steel. It is a place where people go to learn, but also to feel. And for many, the real ghosts are not just shadows. They are reminders that some parts of history never truly fade. The West Virginia Penitentiary stands in Moundsville, West Virginia. It opened in 1876 and operated for over a century. The building is huge, made of thick stone walls and towering ceilings. From the outside, it looks like a fortress, but inside, it has long hallways, dark cell blocks, and cramped cells. The prison was meant to hold dangerous criminals. Murderers, thieves, and gangsters were sent here. Life inside was harsh. Prisoners worked long hours, often doing dangerous jobs like quarrying stone or tending workshops. Meals were small, and punishment was strict. Guards used solitary confinement, whipping, and chains to control inmates. Many prisoners were sent to the dark cells, tiny rooms with no windows and little light, where some men stayed for weeks. Violence was common. Fights broke out daily, and several riots occurred over the decades. One of the worst was in 1986, when a major fight caused injuries to both guards and prisoners. Disease, poor sanitation, and overcrowding made life even harder. Over time, reports of mental illness among inmates increased. Many men who lived here suffered from depression, anxiety, and hallucinations. The prison is known for its ghost stories. Visitors report feeling watched as soon as they step inside. Cold spots appear suddenly, even in summer. Shadows move along the walls, and distant footsteps echo through empty halls. People say that some cell blocks feel heavier, as if the air carries the weight of suffering from decades past. One of the most haunted areas is the death row cell block. Men here were under constant stress. They lived with fear, knowing that execution could come at any time. Visitors say they sometimes hear voices, cries, and moans when walking past this cell block. Some even report seeing dark figures or shapes moving at the ends of hallways. The infirmary is another place where strange events occur. People have reported sudden chills, faint whispers, and the feeling of someone standing close behind them. Some visitors feel a presence touch them or brush past them, even though no one else is around. Paranormal investigators have studied the penitentiary extensively. They report sudden temperature drops, unexplained noises, and strange lights or orbs in photos. Voice recorders sometimes pick up whispers, calling out names, or faint cries. Visitors who participate in ghost tours often describe intense feelings of unease, fear, and sorrow. The penitentiary closed in 1995. Today, it is a museum open for tours and paranormal investigations. Despite the modern tours, many say the building still holds the memories of its past. The heavy stone walls, narrow corridors, and dark cell blocks seem to preserve the echoes of suffering, fear, and despair. For those who visit, the West Virginia Penitentiary is more than a historic building. It is a place where the past is alive. The The walls remember the people who lived and died here, and the spirits of the prisoners seem to linger, keeping the stories of the past present for anyone brave enough to enter. The Louisiana State Penitentiary, known as Angola, sits in the heart of Louisiana. It is the largest maximum security prison in the United States, covering over 18,000 acres. This land was once a cotton plantation worked by enslaved people. After the Civil War, the plantation became a prison farm, and over time it evolved into the Angola prison we know today. The long history of slavery, violence, and forced labor has left a heavy mark on the land, which many believe contributes to its haunted reputation. Angola is enormous. Prisoners live and work on the property, which includes fields, forests, and long rows of cells. The prison has more than 3,600 inmates at any one time. Life here is extremely strict. Men wake up at dawn and follow a rigid schedule. Work begins early. They tend the fields, cook meals, repair buildings, or maintain the massive prison grounds. Any rule breaking is punished immediately, often with isolation in small cells, where prisoners can spend weeks in darkness. The prison is infamous for its harsh past. During the early 20th century, Angola was known as one of the most violent prisons in the country. Fights, riots, and murders happened regularly. Prisoners lived with fear every day. Disease spread quickly because of overcrowding, poor sanitation, and limited medical care. Mental health problems were common. Many men developed depression, anxiety, or worse. The punishment cells, often referred to as lockdowns, were tiny, with no light and no human contact for days. Death row adds a chilling dimension to Angola. Prisoners here awaited execution. Some were sentenced to life, others to death. Visitors say this area has an especially heavy energy. Many report hearing soft whispers or cries echoing through the halls. Some say they see shadowy figures standing silently near the cells or pacing slowly as if guarding the prisoners who once lived there. The old plantation buildings on the property add to the eerie atmosphere. These structures were part of the original prison farm, including barns, quarters for guards, and storage houses. People who walk among them report hearing strange noises, chains dragging across floors, doors creaking open, and distant sounds of work being done when no one is there. Some say they even see apparitions of men in old prison uniforms, walking silently through the fields or standing in dark corners. Many paranormal investigators have visited Angola to document the unexplained. They report sudden drops in temperature in certain areas, even during hot Louisiana summers. Cameras often capture orbs or shadows that appear to have no source. Voice recorders sometimes pick up whispers, low moans, or phrases like "help me" or "leave me alone." Investigators say the energy in Angola is very strong and that it reacts to fear, emotion, and attention from visitors. Beyond the physical cells, Angola is haunted by history itself. Stories tell of prisoners who died from violence, illness, or despair. Some were buried in unmarked graves on the property. The fields where prisoners once labored are said to hold echoes of suffering. The sound of footsteps in the dirt, tools dropping, or men calling out to each other, even though the work stopped decades ago. Survivors and staff from Angola have shared their experiences. Former guards have reported seeing dark figures at the edge of vision or feeling hands touch their shoulders when no one was around. Some have smelled smoke, perfume, or other scents with no source, sometimes tied to specific areas where tragic events occurred. Visitors often say the energy is heaviest in older cell blocks and areas that were used for solitary confinement or punishment. The mental strain of Angola's history is also a part of its reputation. Many say that the building seems alive with emotion, a mix of anger, sorrow, and despair that never fully leaves. Paranormal experts describe the energy as almost sentient, reacting to human presence. Some believe that the spirits of men who suffered and died on the plantation and prison grounds linger, bound to the land and the buildings themselves. Even today, Angola is an active prison, but it has become a place of tours and investigations. Visitors walk through the grounds, enter cell blocks, and explore the fields. Many report feeling chills, hearing unexplained sounds, or seeing fleeting shadows. The combination of history, architecture, and reported paranormal activity makes Angola a place where the past is never truly gone. For anyone who steps foot inside Angola, the experience is unforgettable. The echoes of suffering, despair, and human endurance seem to linger everywhere. Some believe the land itself carries the memory of its dark history. Visitors leave with a sense that the spirits of the past are still present, that the pain, fear, and struggles of those who lived and died here will never fully fade. Angola is not just a prison. It is a monument to human suffering, endurance, and the unshakable presence of memory. All across the United States, these prisons stand as reminders of the past. Eastern State Penitentiary, Alcatraz, Ohio State Reformatory, West Virginia Penitentiary, and Angola. Each one has its own history, its own stories of suffering, violence, and despair. These are not fairy tales. They are real. They are places where men lived under harsh rules, where punishments were severe, and where death and fear were always close. And even though time has passed, the energy of these prisons remains. Visitors and guards alike report chilling experiences. Steps echo when no one walks nearby. Doors slam for no reason. Shadows move along hallways that have been empty for decades. Cold spots appear suddenly, and whispers rise from the walls. Some say it is the echo of human suffering. Others say the spirits never left. These prisons were built to contain men. They were built to hold dangerous criminals. But many believe that the walls hold more than flesh and bone. They hold memories, emotions, and the traces of lives that passed through. Fear, sorrow, and pain linger here. The ghosts may not speak, but they are felt. Their presence is heavy, quiet, and constant. When you leave these prisons, the feeling does not disappear. The memory of the stories, the echoes of footsteps, and the weight of history follow you. They are reminders that some places remember everything. They remember the suffering, the despair, and the struggle. They remember the men who lived, and sometimes, the men who never truly left. These prisons are silent now, but for those who know how to listen, the walls still speak. The past is alive, and the ghosts of America's haunted prisons are never far away. If you want more stories of real-life hauntings and unexplained events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a chilling tale. Leave a comment below and tell us which prison you think is the most haunted. Your opinion might appear in our next video. The prisons may be empty, but the ghosts remain. The stories continue, and the haunting never truly ends.